Awesome. So we want to bring you and do an interview with you today about specifically your experience in being trafficked. And I'm wondering if you want to share a little bit of your experience with us.
I ended up homeless at the age of 11. Um, bad family life, incest, abuse. Um, yeah, I was trafficked within the home, and I ran away. Ended up in care, and continued to run away from family and children's services from care, and ended up on the streets of Toronto at the age of 11 after running away from the London Psychiatric Hospital. And when I was at the London Psychiatric Hospital, they kept doing all these horrific tests on me to find out what I had done to provoke a full-grown man into doing those heinous things to me, to those things of my childhood abuse. And I got to Toronto, and I felt very, very safe with the street people. We were all like-minded. We were all looking after each other. It just seemed safer than anything I had ever experienced before in my life. He had come into some money, and he had asked us if we wanted to go down to Chinatown to grab a bite to eat. And it was me and a bunch of the younger boys. So we all went down to Chinatown. We walked into the restaurant. I was really excited about a hot meal. And so I walked up the stairs. He gave me the keys. I put the keys in the lock to get in. And just as I stepped through the first set of doors, I was grabbed, and I was gagged and blindfolded and dragged, and I was fighting. And all I knew is that men upon men, they came into that room. They beat me. They raped me. They sodomized me. They pissed on me, and they shit on me. And they would hit me. There was no reason they hit me. I was already tied to the bed. It seemed like I was there forever, but I couldn't justify time. I couldn't tell day from night. There was no windows in this room. And I couldn't even see any light coming out from what was covering my face. And finally, they decided that they were going to get rid of me, that I was too diseased for Chinatown. And they grabbed me and they shuffled me down the stairs. I was picked up by somebody else who had paid for me, who had purchased me, and he had taken me to the doctor, cleaned me up, put a needle in my arm, and stood me on the corner of a church in Isabella, where I stayed high and began turning tricks with quota, $1,000 a day quota.
When this was happening to you, is there anything that, kept your spirit going?
Yeah, the fact that it wasn't my fault. But when I was out there and I was standing there and I knew I could run away from them because I ran away from the group homes. I knew I could run, but there was nowhere for me to run to. I couldn't go home because I felt like I had broke everything. Family and Children's Services had convinced me that my mother didn't want me because I broke her home. I put my father in jail. So I couldn't go home. My visits with FACS became fewer and far between, to the point where they would pick me up, they would take me to the Eaton Center, buy me lunch, excuse themselves to go to the washroom and never come back. I was an Indigenous child, young girl, and with all the molestations and all the rapes I had endured as a child, and now standing on the street corner, that was my life skill. I was either going to live or die. And they left me there. So I had nowhere to go, and I had no one to run to. And I was no longer running from anything. I was just existing.
What do you think you needed at that time to help you get through that?
I needed to believe that I could go home. I didn't need them lying to me,
Mm-hmm.
and they lied to me. I needed someone to talk to me like an adult, as an equal, not a superior. Because even though I was trapped in this 11 and 12-year-old body at the beginning, the stuff that I had seen and the stuff I had experienced was that of an adult. I turned 11 years old and freaking woke up 25,
Mm-hmm.
which I could have understood had they spoke to me like a human being, spoke to me, not at me, helped me instead of tortured me and abandoned me.
I'm wondering if you can give any insight on what you think service providers need to know.
I think it's really important to know that we live with a shame. That the minute we're put out there, we know it's wrong. We know because we can feel it with every time our heart beats. We're sick to our stomach because of the feel of our own skin, but we're scared. We're not the same person, and it's hard to want to go home and sit back in a grade 7 classroom and to have friends my own age, or to go back and play baseball, because that was robbed of me. Any ambitions I had as a child ceased to exist. That child, that 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 reaching, always reaching and wanting more, was gone. And there I was standing on a street corner, scared and not even wanting to call home. Couldn't call family members because I was not the same person. I was too embarrassed to go home. I had every opportunity. I could have ran at any time, but there was nowhere to go. It's intergenerational traumas. And I know as Indigenous people, we speak of that.
Mm-hmm.
We speak of that a lot. My father was a residential school survivor. I'm a survivor of human trafficking. I'm a survivor of child exploitation and trafficking. My children are residential school survivors and survivors of human trafficking, yet they've never been touched by it. It's in their blood. It courses through their veins. The teachings are there.
Mm-hmm.
Any abuse that anyone has ever endured in their life, they pay it forward and they teach it forward. So I think where society comes ahead is the acknowledgement. They're acknowledging it and they're speaking it as an issue, as a really, really big issue. And they're less apt to place the blame on the child. Where when I was younger, my police reports state that I had a sexual relationship with my father. A relationship is that of consent.
Mm-hmm.
I did not consent to that sexual relationship with my father.
Mm-hmm.
Because what does that get? What information does that provide to our kids? Not just our girls, but to our boys, that is okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is not okay.
Something that I think about as well, right, is the online exploitation that exists, because now they have access. People worldwide have access to our children, right?
Right.
And that's a
Or
terrifying thought.
the desensitization with the flippant little jokes, or in every movie there's the gratuitous sex, or the exotic dancer on a pole in all these rough boy man movies, and and micro minis and high heels for the popular and beautiful girls.
Mhm.
you know um Society needs to know that that is not all right, and the world keeps desensitizing. We need to sit down and tell our children the truth and speak to them like equals. Their spirits were just born later than ours.
Mhm.
Their bodies are younger than ours, not their spirits, not their souls, not their journey. We all come from the same place. We need to teach them with the utmost honesty and respect for their journey. And we need to regard these victims of human trafficking, of sexual exploitation, molestation, incest. We need to treat them as equals.
And that's something that I've been really thinking about, right? The autonomy, like one's ability to self-govern, right? That self-governance. And I feel like throughout our history as Ongwehoe, like um, I feel like that autonomy was lost, our ability to use our voice was lost, and
Yeah.
um, that's one thing that I think about when working with people who have experienced trafficking is like, what do they need? Not do what's going to make me feel comfortable, but what is going to honor and respect their place where they're at now, right? And I really hope that people do the same and respect that autonomy, and not try to push somebody to do something they're not ready for, but have options available, I guess, right?
Right.
What kind of advice would you give parents?
They need to just come straight out and tell them the truth. They got to stop pussyfooting around.
Mhm.
I think parents need to open that. They need to suck up their pride, and they need to acknowledge their own traumas and the possibilities of the intergenerational trauma being forwarded to their children. And they need to speak to them as an equal divine spirit, given the choice to speak. Because if a child knows the truth and they know that this is wrong, they're more apt to speak up. But then again, if they're not taught that, love comes in so many different ways. But I think it's really, really important to not let them have to deal with this alone.
Thinking back to your experience, and what helped you exit?
Consistency. Um, I had a probation and parole officer, Antoinette Burgess. She was big, gnarly, but she wouldn't take any of my shit. She called me out all the time, but she was consistent with it. She was somebody that I got to see on a regular basis, whether I was mad or not mad, even though it was forced. I had to see her. And then there was Tweedledum and Tweedledee, two cops with 52 Division Police. They would drive by every night. They would give me, a really hard time. They would call me names. I would call them names. But yet, when there was a problem, I would look for Tweedledum and Tweedledee.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, I ended up with a baby in my belly. And that baby saved my life because it was no longer my world. And the day I found out the baby was in my belly, I left.
What do you think are the challenges you faced in healing from those experiences?
It took me a long time. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on the garbage that I hold in my spirit. And I still try to understand my worth. But I don't know. The hardest part was trying to be normal without wearing masks. Everything is a mask. Everything was a mask. And I struggled for so many years. I could be anybody or anything. I could fit in any group, any world, anybody, any situation. I could get myself out of because these masks I put on. But now I'm pulling those masks off, one layer at a time, trying to figure out which one is actually me, what's underneath there, who am I really, who am I supposed to be? When is this going to stop? I am 52 years old. I'm going to be 53 years old in May. And it hasn't stopped. We need long-term counseling, because even though the trauma happened so long ago, I continued to exploit and traffic myself because it was the only thing I knew. It's the only thing I knew how to do, is treat myself with disrespect. Yet I was thinking I was treating myself with respect. I thought I was holier than thou, that my shit didn't stink, that I could get through anything because I was tough and I was strong. But no, that was a mask that I had placed upon my spirit. And it was robbing me and raping me every morning when I got up, when I didn't know who I was going to have to be today. Me as a survivor, I'm really, really lucky that I happened upon the help that I'm receiving now down on Six Nations, that they are helping me heal my spirit for my journey home. So that at least when I return home, I know and I can recognize a little bit of who I am, who I really am.
I just want to ask if there's anything that has brought you joy, that has, kept that flame alive inside of you, that, brings you a little bit of peace.
My children do. Knowing that I made this deal, me and the Creator wrote this contract up, and I agreed upon it, that I will soon return home and this contract will be null and void and it'll be over with. I am grateful that my children came out of this unscathed, the best way possible anyway. I did okay. My art, I love my art, and it's very healing and loving, and it's the kindest thing in my world is my art. And it's something that was always mine, that no one could take away, no one can change, no one could alter. Ever since I was a little girl, it was always my art. There's another big thing that I would really like to to bring forward here. I believe that a law should be implemented for family members that shame a child for coming forward. And I believe that anyone that discredits a child or a victim of child exploitation, human trafficking, or any type of sex offenses should be charged with guilty after the fact and have their name put on the sex offenders list as a dangerous person. We're here to protect the next 7 generations, and we're here to honor the journey of the 7 generations before us. This needs to start with us. This needs to begin with us, and it needs to end with us.
I want to thank you. I know the topic isn't easy. It's not, I'm sure it's hard to go through all the time, but I want to really thank you for sharing that with us so that we can learn to, be better community members, better service providers, better parents. And it was very, very helpful for us to have this conversation.
Thank you.
And I think sharing these experiences by somebody who is not coming from the outside is, you know what I mean?
Right.
You're a Six Nations person who was, or, has ties here that has been trafficked. And I think it's really important for people to see it, and that, you're having the courage, to share that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I want to really thank you for that.